Hello and welcome everyone to the Cash Rules podcast. My name is Keith Smith, and unfortunately my co-host is not here just yet, but his name is Fabyan Roldan. And we are here with our special guest. We got Anthony Pompliano with us today. I want to start off by making sure that we are all aware that none of what we are discussing today should be taken as legal, financial, or tax advice. Instead, the objective is to just highlight some of the unspoken rules in finance, discuss why these concepts so often go unspoken, and what we can be doing on a practical level to really change that in an informational, educational capacity. So, Pomp, thanks for being here. Let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, the things that interest you the most, and what you're doing on a daily basis right now.
Yeah. Entrepreneur and investor. I really enjoy, the game of business, if you will, like building companies, like talking to people who are building companies and sometimes invest in them. And on a day-to-day basis, I pretty much spend all of my time thinking about how to build things, whether that is podcasts and content, media stuff, whether that is specific types of businesses, or to help some of the companies that we've invested in, help them build what they're trying to do.
What the hell's going on with this now?
Hey, Fabyan, we're live.
Oh,
so
Fabyan, no what an entrance.
I'm not mad. Welcome back. And we've got Anthony Pomp with us. He just told us a little bit about his background. So
hey Pomp, sorry about the tardiness. How you doing, man?
Doing great.
Yeah. I want to make sure we keep this conversation going. So
let's go.
Tell us a little bit about what are some of maybe the most important concepts around, because you've built a lot of personal wealth through your investments and in your life in general. Like, what is a big lesson that you've learned in just building wealth for yourself and your family?
Yeah, I don't know if I built a lot of personal wealth. It always feels like you're kind of still in the game and you're still trying to kind of figure it out. I would say for me personally, there's 2 or 3 lessons maybe I've learned over time. One is the more long-term you think, the better off you usually end up being. So that prevents you from making really stupid mistakes in the short term. But it also allows you to pick things that are going to be around for a long time, that are going to be able to compound for a long time. So I think long-term thinking is kind of a key thing. Second thing is who you surround yourself with has a really big impact on what you do on a day-to-day basis, what you talk about, what you think about, and ultimately kind of drives what the result of your actions are. So if you're around a lot of smart people and you're always talking about smart shit, like you probably become smarter, right? If you end up hanging out with a bunch of people who just want to go drink every single night and you talk about nothing intelligent and you just argue about, bullshit, then guess what? Like your brain erodes away. Right. And doesn't mean that you got to be 100% in either one of those categories. It just means like, hey, try to always have like maybe 55, 45, like always just be around a little bit more smarter people than you are around kind of bullshit. And then the third thing is just do stuff that you enjoy. Like it's so underrated and it's so simple, but your energy really will follow what you're excited about. And so there's been a lot of times where I've had opportunities to do things, invest in things, or build companies in spaces where I'm like, man, it's a huge opportunity. I don't give a shit about it. And if I don't care about it, then what ends up happening is weeks, months, maybe even a year or 2 into it, it's just kind of like, whatever. And you realize that like your excitement level, your enthusiasm, your energy isn't there. And so what's going to happen is you may be able to brute force stuff, but eventually someone's going to beat you because they're going to be laying in bed at night, wide awake, thinking nonstop about how to win a market or an opportunity. And so you just end up losing to that person. Right. And so just focus on things where you enjoy it and are excited and your energy kind of feels like, hey, I can't believe I get to do this every day. And that's usually where you end up finding success.
Okay, so to go back towards some of the beginning of what you said about, you're kind of always in it. Something about that too is like your game is private markets, early stage. I want to find that company that no one knows about, right? And fund these founders that are incredible people and then see the upside, whenever they get to see the upside, right, of their work too. Talk to us a little bit about the difference between investing privately in private companies and investing in public markets for people who aren't familiar with investing at all.
Yeah, I have nearly zero public market investments. I've got no competitive advantage there. right? So I just stay away from things that I don't know that much about or don't think that I could really capitalize on. In the private markets, what's unique is like I'm not investing in companies. Like that may be the vehicle, that may be the action that's occurring, but what I'm really doing is I'm investing in a person. And the earlier the point in the business, the more it's the person, right? So I actually don't even like investing when it's kind of series B, C, D, whatever, when now there's a bunch of data and products and like all this stuff. Some investors really like that stuff. My favorite thing in the world is to feel like I went and I found somebody that the world doesn't know about yet. And there's a person, I forget who it was, but they DM'd me one time and they said, "Hey, Pomp, I just started following you. I just wanted you to know I'm a nobody today, but eventually I'm going to be a somebody." Right. And I remember just being like, yo, I don't even know who this person is. It's like a student anonymous account, I think, or whatever. But I was like, that's the mentality, right? I love that stuff. And so to some degree, it's like when there's founders that I've invested in that I met when they were literally nobody, right? And didn't have a company, didn't have anything. And to now see them today, it wasn't so much like, oh, I'm betting on this business as much as it was this person is somebody who I think can do some really cool things. And I want to go on the journey with them. And so that includes they're going to call me when shit's going wrong. They're going to call me when things are going well. And they may just call me because they're bored, right? And they need someone to talk to. But like for whatever reason, you're now not sitting across the table from them. You're sitting side by side with them. And it's like, let's go together. And so that's kind of cool to get that opportunity to do that. But you also have to be able to underwrite people, right? You got to be able to pick well. And so what ends up happening is a lot of the things that society tells you is assigning value to someone's career is 180-degree opposite of what makes a great founder. So what you end up seeing is like a lot of times people will be like, oh, let's go back the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. They're going to start a new company. Like that might not be the best person to start a company, right? Because they're used to operating with this huge, like, Titanic type ship. But we need somebody who could do a canoe, right? Like we gotta be quick. We gotta be able to move. We gotta be able to iterate. And so I think that it's this fascinating thing of just like what makes a great founder, right?
I love that.
And usually it's things that you wouldn't think of.
I love that. And it kind of comes back to that idea of like, surround yourself with the people you want to be surrounded with, right? So now you're actually saying, hey, this is someone that I want to put in my circle in a certain way, right? And then obviously you feed off of each other in different ways as you're growing and building that next thing. I do.
Yeah, you can learn. Look, you can learn a lot from founders, right? Like investors. There's a lot of people I meet that I get excited because they're telling me something that I don't know, and I start asking questions, and they either have answers or they got good. I don't know that, but like this is how I would think about it, and I'm realizing I'm learning here. Okay, like that's pretty cool, right? Tell me more about the market. Tell me more about this. How would you handle this situation? What about this? Where are you going to find the first 2 engineers? Like you start asking all these questions, and I call it the excitement factor. Is like when you're talking to somebody, you could tell somebody who's like, I'm living, breathing this stuff, and I'm not going to quit. Because that's another lesson I think I've learned over time is I've invested in some pretty cool ideas, and the founders quit. And so what you have to do is you got to remember we need to be day-to-day urgent, but you got to be long-term patient. You got to be in this thing, right? And so being able to balance the short-term urgency with the long-term patience is crucial for founders.
Love that.
Very interesting.
I wanna tap in on the idea of just to move forward. I know you pay close attention to the Federal Reserve, monetary policy, things like that. To tell us a little bit about today, how you look at the concept of saving for someone who's looking for their personal investments and things like that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Given that we are in a recessionary period, I would say that people probably save more than normal, just because they're scared of the uncertainty of kind of the future world that they don't understand yet. And if things could get worse, you kind of want to have a bigger bank account, right? A stronger balance sheet. You want to have more cash flow. You want to be able to kind of make moves without having to stress out. So I think savings goes up in the people who are sophisticated and understand we're in a recessionary period, have the ability to save more. At the same time, we're experiencing historic inflation, 8-9% inflation, and is eating away at the value of the dollar. And so it's this weird stagflationary period where you probably actually want to have a little bit of everything, right? You want to have some savings. You want to have some cash flow. You want to have some investments. And you also want to have what I call kind of like the emergency money. And the emergency money is shit. The market just crashed, in a major way, smash the emergency button and buy more assets. Or shit, I just lost my job, smash the emergency button. I got some extra cash and I can, extend my runway another 3 to 6 months before I find another job. Like it's this money that isn't necessarily allocated to savings or investing or whatever, but it's sitting there and you're like, this is the money I'm going to use to make some plays over the next 6 to 12 months during this period of time. I just don't yet know what those plays are until they present themselves.
Now, it seems like you have some military background. I mean, besides the American flag behind you, your demeanor and everything seems and just exposed to me anyway, your aura of somebody in the military. And I know, looking at your history and your resume and everything, that you were in the Army. Can you talk to us about how your time in the Army prepares you for the world of investing?
Yeah, I don't know if it prepared me necessarily for investing as much as it definitely, there was like a bunch of leadership schools that I was fortunate enough to go to. So those were cool experiences. There was the real world applicability of just, you're a sergeant in the Army and you got to be able to convince people, even if you are outranking them, you got to be able to convince them to do certain things and want to be better and all that kind of stuff, which obviously has crossover into the business world. But the third thing, and I've talked about this a bunch, but I was deployed to Iraq in 2008, 2009. There's, some crazy situations. And in those situations, one of the first ones, a gentleman was killed. And what I realized in the moment, I was 20 years old, and it just hit me. I was like, yo, we're all going to die. Like, today wasn't my day, and it wasn't all these other guys here, but it was that guy's day. Right. And it's unfortunate. And I was pissed and angry and like I had all these emotions and all this stuff. But it just hit me like, if we're all going to die from here until that day comes, I'm going to enjoy this shit. Right. And I think it completely changed my entire mentality about life. And the unfortunate part of those stories is like my experience being deployed was nothing compared to 99% of other people who got deployed. Right. Like I had it easy. It was cake. But when you look at it, there's some people who are in those situations and they go the other direction. There's depression, there's PTSD, there's like all this other stuff. And so I'm a big believer that as much as possible, like you've got to remember that the most powerful muscle you have is your brain. And if you can put yourself in a certain type of mindset and kind of remind yourself of it over time, you end up in a pretty good spot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And talk about time. How did your time at Facebook shape your view on the world as far as investing into companies moving forward?
Man, when I was at Facebook, it was just the quality of the people. Like we would be in meetings and you kind of just felt it. Everyone was there. And I think a lot of people had imposter syndrome because they were sitting there and they were like, yo, it's a baller ass room. Everyone's at Facebook. We're all kind of like here, but these people are going to go do some crazy stuff in their careers. And this is kind of like a special moment in time.
The stepping stone.
Yeah. And it was this thing of like, you know how these big companies go. You're either there like 2 to 3 years or you're there for life, right? Or there for a decade or whatever. And what ended up happening is like some of these teams, people left after 2 or 3 years and they've now gone on to do crazy, crazy things. They've become CEOs of major companies. They've become, prolific investors. They've done like all this different stuff. And you look back and you're just like, man, I got so much better there. I learned a lot. People pushed me. I learned how to operate, like all these things that you couldn't pick up in a classroom. It was better than like a traditional MBA, but I didn't expect that when I went in there, right? It's not like I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to go get an MBA. I'm going to go work at Facebook. It was just a moment in time. You take what you can out of it. And then it's, same thing. It's like your network. The people who you end up surrounding yourself with through your life end up being pretty important.
It seems exactly what you were saying before in terms of just being around certain individuals that, elevate themselves always and become better, and that seems like that was that room in terms of Facebook, especially in the beginning, right?
You guys know, like I got this theory. It's called the hype man theory. If you and like a bunch of your friends are hanging out, right, and there's the one guy who's always hyping you up, you start standing up straighter, right? Like you start actually believing the bullshit, right? But it's like the hype man is like he's getting in your head. That's real. Like that is human psychology, right? If somebody tells you every single day, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, or on the other end, we expect this of you. Humans are like very resilient. They rise to the challenge, right? And so, yeah, just surrounding yourself with a certain type of person really, I think kind of sets you apart. But you still got to do the work. Like just being around smart people don't make you smart, right? You got to still do work. It just can help increase the probability.
Now, I had one more question. It's not in terms of what you were talking about. Mentors. What is the importance of mentors? It seems like you were kind of going on that a little bit earlier. What is the importance of mentors in a person in any kind of field of knowledge or study?
Yeah, I got a weird relationship on the mentor side, in the sense of I think mentors are great at breaking down the like mystical view of how people get somewhere. So if you got a mentor, you can go say, hey, like walk me through your career. Like, where'd you start? And they're like, oh, I started out, in the mailroom. You're like, oh shit, you're so successful. You start out in the mailroom. And so they can kind of like humanize it a little bit and realize like it is possible to rise from not very high to these high positions. And then the second thing is I think about mentors as the infrequent phone call, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody who serves in any sort of mentorship capacity for me, I don't call them often. I don't really talk to them, more than maybe 4 to 6 times a year. But when I call, I need some good advice, right? I need a sounding board. And so mentors are infrequent and super high value per minute spent with them. But if you think over the length of your career, your peers are actually going to be way more valuable to you, right? So when you talk to the mentor, you're like, hey, what do you think about this? What do they say? Oh, let me call my friend. I've known him for 25 years. He runs this company. Oh, let me call this lady. I've known her. We worked together 15 years ago, whatever, right? So your peers end up being the ones that you'll actually build your career with. The mentors are the infrequent calls. The peers are the everyday, right? Like you two probably talk way more often with each other than you talk to your mentors. And so again, it goes back to this idea of like who you surround yourself with is a competitive advantage.
Love it. And then, so thinking about just moving forward a bit, resources for how to like really dig in to learn what you may need to know. Cause not everybody is also going to have that. Oh, I worked at Facebook, so I've seen what it looks like to grow a startup and bring that to a Fortune 500 level company. Right. How do you think about for someone who's investing in private companies or publicly, how do they do research? How do they learn?
Yeah, there's 2 tests that I always tell people, and I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Go on to your iPhone or Android device, go to the analytics and look how much time you spend on your phone. And if you're spending 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 hours a day scrolling Twitter and Instagram, you're making the choice to do that stuff. Like we're addicted to the phones, right? So like, that's just, it is what it is, but like get off. Shut off notifications, delete the app, like whatever you got to do that you think sounds crazy to get off of that stuff so that you can go actually learn is kind of the first step of like, what do they say? Like in AA, I think one of the things is like the first step is you got to admit you got a problem, right? It is similar here is you're addicted to your phone, get off the phone. Then the second thing is I think there's a test around reading physical books. You could tell whether you're addicted to your phone or not if you pull out a physical book and try to read for an hour straight and don't touch your phone. Ooh. Most people can't do that. And the reason I know is because 6 months ago, I tried to do that and I couldn't do it. So now I only read physical books and I like sit on my phone. I like put it in the other room, right? Like I'm trying to get back to, I don't have to grab my phone every second. But what that does is it allow me to focus, even if it's an hour at a time, to read so that I can get knowledge. And then the hybrid of this is like podcasts, for example. Podcasts are this amazing thing where I can sit and listen. A bunch of my friends got podcasts, right? And they interview somebody and I can take years of experience and it's condensed into like 30 to 60 minutes. And I put it on 2x speed. So it was like 15 to 30 minutes. And I just got all that knowledge. And some of it's not applicable to my life. Some of it's like mentality or mindset or whatever. But every once in a while, I'll listen to a podcast. I'm like, I invested 15 minutes in listening to this thing. And I got one idea. And that idea made me change something in my life, whether it's a personal habit, whether it's a strategy thing, an investment, whatever. Like that's an amazing investment. 15 minutes of time for an idea that makes you change something in your life. And so I think people just got to audit their time. Like, what do you spend time doing? And when you start doing it, it's uncomfortable because we all waste a bunch of time. Right? Because we're bored, because we live in this like amazing world that's the most safe, prosperous time in human history. Get off your phone. And if you want to get better at something, go get better at it.
I think that was huge.
Very big, very big.
Yeah. The way that the question was written down was what are the resources that investors need to use? And it's like, actually, it's the resource that they already have, and they just need to audit it and use it properly. Amazing. And then,
just real quick, one other thing I would say, my wife and I, one of the things that I think we've always got along really well on is just like you can listen to podcasts and learn, reading people's biographies, like profiles of them in the news or biographies, whatever. For whatever reason, maybe I'm weirdo, whatever. I just love reading people's biographies or autobiographies or whatever. And you learn. It's like their whole lifetime packed into 300 pages. If you could sit and read the 300 pages or listen to the audio book, like, bam, you just got a whole life full of experience that maybe you need, maybe you don't. But I tend to think that that's a pretty good way to learn as well.
Love it, man. And then I want to ask you about habits around focus as well. Like, is there anything that you're doing on a daily basis that you feel like is just geared towards that?
Man, I probably sound like, wow, this guy's got his shit together. I'm just like everybody else. I doom scroll on the phone. I screw around. I waste time. Like whatever. Like, we're human, right? That stuff happens. I would say, in terms of like reinforcing good habits, there's probably 4 things maybe that I do. Every day I wake up, and it sounds super cheesy, but I literally say out loud to my wife, I say, today's going to be a good day.
Let's
go. That sounds real dumb.
It's the manifestation.
I love it. It's a big day today.
Yeah, it's just like, put yourself in the mindset that today is going to be a good day. And it started out as kind of like a joke, right? But now, like, I literally say it. If I don't say it to her, she's like, today's not going to be a good day. Right? So, I'm like, damn, yeah, you're right. Yeah, today's going to be a good day, right? But I think that's kind of one thing. The second thing is, I never really was into like diets or any of that type of stuff or whatever. But a friend of mine said to me, hey, man, if you get tired during the day, try to not eat till afternoon. Right. So like a lot of this, what do they call it? Intermittent fasting or whatever. No, this shit sounds stupid. For whatever reason, I think clearer in the morning and into the early afternoon than if I ate a bunch of food in the morning. Whatever. I don't understand the science, but it works for me. The third thing is I try to exercise every day, but exercise doesn't have to be I go to the gym and bench press, or I go run 12 miles or whatever, right? My general goal is, can I close the exercise ring on my Apple Watch? That could just be I walked for 45 minutes or something, right? Like whatever it is, just like move and don't sit at the desk all day. And the last thing is I sleep. I try to get 8 hours of sleep. And last night I slept 7 hours and 15 minutes and I felt like shit when I woke up. And that don't sound like that big of a deal, but most people, they either don't get 7 hours and 15 minutes or they compound 6:45, 7, 6:45, 7:15, 6:30, whatever. And then by the time they get to the end of the week, they actually are in this debt of sleep. So I try to always sleep 8 hours, and it gives me the energy to go through the whole day, because it goes back to the idea of founders can't quit in the journey. But how many people, their productivity is great from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. or 8 a.m. to noon, and then they get smoked the rest of the day? Well, if you could keep your energy up for 12 hours, then you just are compounding every single day, 12 hours a day. You got a shot to do something cool.
Love that. We're all human. And so taking care of our bodies, our mind in the form of sleep is just one of the most important things that, especially people my age, my generation, it's like, oh, I don't sleep. I don't need sleep. It's like, I don't know where you're getting that from. But I recently started tuning into Dr. Andrew Huberman. Do you listen to him at all?
Yeah. Huberman is great.
Huge tip for just getting your focus together, your sleep together, taking care of your body. I love his stuff as well. I want to move on. Tell me, what is one of the riskiest moves that you have made with your portfolio? How did you justify it? Where did it go right or wrong for you?
I put like, I don't know, 80, 90% of my net worth into Bitcoin in 2018 when it dropped all the way to the bottom of the market. And went on national television, said I did it. And Kevin O'Leary and a bunch of other people were like, you're an absolute idiot. I think his exact words was, he forbade me. It was forbidden for me to do that. And now he's a Bitcoiner, and it worked out. So, again, not
I remember that. I remember that.
Look, and I say that bombastically because it's funny, right? But like, it was a thing where my wife, but my girlfriend at the time, we just talked about it. And I said, listen, for whatever reason, I think that this thing is real. And if I was by myself, I'm willing to go to zero and start all over. But I got you to think about to some degree. We're not married, but like, we were serious. And she said to me, if you think it's real, then do it. And so to some degree, it was risky, but I also had confidence in myself that if it didn't go well, I'd be okay. Like I had a skill set that I knew that I could come back. It may take a long time, but I could come back. And so I think you just got to be real comfortable with risk and you don't want to be stupid, but at the same time, like you're not going to get rich sitting at a 9-to-5 job, getting paid a flat salary with no upside, no equity, no anything. And so I always, kind of coach young people and just like get yourself in a position where you could bet on yourself. Sometimes that is equity. Sometimes that is like revenue share. Sometimes that's have a job plus a side hustle. Like there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Just put yourself in a position where you could bet on yourself. And usually it'll end up at least putting you in a good position.
So let me ask you then, what are some of the things that you think are the most important aspects of finance that no one is ever really talking about?
I mean, it's emotional control. That's the only thing that matters at the end of the day, right? Right now, there's a lot of people scared out of their minds. And there's a strong argument, maybe they should be super greedy. Or maybe in 6 months, after the market falls even more, they should be super greedy. But like the best investors are able to fight human nature. And so just naturally, you are abnormal if you can say, prices are falling, everyone is scared, but I'm not scared. And the ways to do that are you got to have great emotional control. You got to have some degree of stupidity. Like you just literally got to be ignorant. And then the other thing is you got to be educated, right? Like, and those two things sound like they're in contrast with each other, but you have to be able to ignore the fear. You have to be educated enough to have conviction and courage to do something that everyone else isn't willing to do at that moment. And then you got to be able to withstand whatever the win or the loss that comes on the other side from it is. And so I think a lot about just emotional control. And if you go back to our conversation earlier about spending all the time on your phone, I promise you all, if you take your phone and you put it in your room and you take your Apple Watch off or any other smart device you have in your room and you go outside and you try to go for a walk for 2-3 hours, you will be freaking out. Because you'll be looking, it's like a phantom, like, oh shit, where's the notification? What's this? Oh, where's my phone? I forgot it. Like you'd be freaking out. And so if you can get to the point where like the phone doesn't run your life, I think that people's emotional control drastically increases because they don't have that anxiety, that kind of chaos feeling at all times.
Very true.
But guess what? This shit don't leave my side. Like I love my phone, right? So like it's like we know what we need to do. It's just really hard to do it.
Love that. I think one of the things I try to do too is I try to put my phone on do not disturb at least, right? Which I think maybe may have a reverse effect because then I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, like now I got to see if I have anything in my notifications, which is, I don't know. So, but I do think about that. And like, if you're on Twitter specifically, it's, you're always seeing both sides of the craziest argument. And you can spend time just getting sucked in and things like that. But going back to what you were saying around just emotional control in general, I feel like it's super important to also put yourself out there and start doing it, like start risking, finding a way to risk it, because until you actually realize that, like what it means in a bad way for your emotions to take control of what you're trying to do, you'll never really get it. So, getting burned on, oh, I was paying attention to the news and reading sentiment. And like, that was what got me. Right. So
you also like one of the other things is wherever you put your money, that's where your time and attention goes. Right. Like that's why years ago, I started telling people, I was like, hey, get off zero. And what that meant is most people have zero exposure to Bitcoin. You want to learn about Bitcoin, put $5 in. Even $5, like, it don't matter if that's a lot of money or not a lot of money to you. You watch where your money is, right? And so ultimately what happens is when you get exposure to things and it's financial exposure, you just pay attention. And so one of the best ways to learn is to get some skin in the game. Now, I always tell people, if you're just starting, like don't go all in on anything, right? You literally start with $5, $10, pay attention, start learning, understand how things work. And then from there, you can figure out what you want to do.
Love it, man. Love it. Let's talk a little bit about some of it. We try to avoid crypto and blockchain and stuff like that, but you're the man around it, or at least you spend time, in that field, paying attention. So tell us, firstly, how do you see technology in general playing a role in how people are interacting with money and finance? And then maybe we can get deeper into blockchain specifically in a second.
I mean, technology is not only the future, but is here now, right? Everything is a technology company. Everybody has to use technology in some portion of their day. Technology makes humanity more productive, and it improves our lives. And so I tend to think that technology is kind of a afterthought at this point, just because it's so pervasive. And I always laugh when somebody said they're like a pessimist on tech. I'm like, okay, sure, you should go back to the Stone Ages then, right? Like the world is going to continue to improve with technology. Now that we could make mistakes, we could, have a net negative versus a net positive, whatever. But like ultimately, the writing is on the wall in terms of the world is going to improve because of technology.
Love it. And then talk to us about blockchain, distributed ledger technology. How does one, if they're an investor and they see all these cryptocurrency things, they're going up and down every day, it's like a stock. How do I look at that as someone who is just an average person in finance?
Don't look at the prices. How many people go and they look at the stock market? Not that many people, right? Yes, some investors do. For the most part, if I ask someone, hey, what's Apple do? Right? They could tell me. I said, what's the Apple stock price? They couldn't tell me. Right? Same thing with Amazon, Walmart, whatever. Like you understand what the company does, but you might not know what the stock price is. And so the place to start is like, go to the largest asset, Bitcoin, and understand what was the problem that it solved? How did it solve it? How does it work? Like all these things. And then once you get to that point, then you can say, well, maybe I want to buy some of it or transact it or whatever. But like go learn before you start worrying about prices or any of that type of stuff, because that's how you operate with everything else. Like imagine if I said to you, hey, go to the stock market and buy a stock. Only an idiot would go and just buy something random that they don't even know what it is. Right? You would look it up a ticker and then you go learn about the company. You'd be like, is it a good company or not a good company? Whatever, right? So same thing here is like, go find out about the actual technology before you end up doing anything on a finance side.
How do you then research future forecasting in terms of how a stock or Bitcoin or any of that in nature does for your portfolio?
Yeah, I don't worry about the stocks, right? Obviously, because I don't own any stocks. With Bitcoin, I used to have like, should I think about it in 3 months, 3 years? Like what's the time frame? And so I eventually just came to the conclusion. I said, I'm gonna hand the Bitcoin that I own to my grandchildren. Point blank period. I'm never selling. I don't care what happens. The shit could go to $1. I'm not selling it. I'm handing it to my grandkids. And they're either going to think I'm a moron or they're going to think I'm a genius. And I don't think there's going to be any in between. Right. And so what it did is it got me in the psychological state. Again, going back to emotional control. I don't care what happens to the price. It goes up a lot. It goes down a lot. Like, sure, I get excited or I'm like, oh, damn, price is down, whatever. But like, I'm not going to change my behavior because of it, because I've already convinced myself I'm handing it to my grandkids. And so I think you got to trick yourself. Like, know that the body is weak, right? Like we have human nature, human emotion. Do things to kind of hack it.
How do you see it as important for a young person to get into financial literacy?
I mean, it's what do they say? Accounting is like the language of business, right? Business runs the world. And I don't care if you're going to go be an employee at a Fortune 500 company, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to be a individual creator, like a YouTuber or anything else. Like if you understand how business works, you have a skill set that you could apply to any industry in any place. And it's the most resilient skill set you can have, right? Like, oh, you can code. Cool. Well, you got to have an idea. You got to have like all these different things. Right now, if you drop me off in the street and you said, yo, dude, by the end of the week, you got to make enough money to be able to get a place, eat, whatever. You get no resources. You can use no of your contacts, anything. I don't care if I literally go and wash cars, if I pick up, trash somewhere for someone, like all kinds of crazy stuff you could do if you understand how business works, right? Because what does it end up being? Supply and demand, prices, what you charge versus what it costs you to do something. Like, it's pretty simple, but you just got to understand how to do that. And so I think that people could be in a really, really good position if they could just learn kind of the simple concepts of business.
So let me then ask you, what is your idea of college versus experience?
I think college, at least when I went through college, I got an economics degree. I didn't really learn that much. I didn't really ever use that much. I talk about economics today, but I actually talk about the complete opposite of what they taught us. Like, I actually think a lot of what they taught us is wrong, right? But you know what it was? It was a great social maturation period for me. I got to interact with a lot of different people from different areas. I got to be in a lot of different social situations. I had to interact with teachers, with classmates, with teammates, like all these different stuff. So like that was really good. And then I met some pretty cool people, right? And so I got kind of like a little bit of a network. And I went and I did some stuff that most of the other people didn't, but there's still a couple of people that I went to college with that I talked to on a pretty consistent basis, things like that. So if you're looking to get just pure information out of college, like get on the internet, right? Like it's way cheaper and you'll get away faster just by going on the internet. But I do think that there can be value to doing it. It's kind of like you could put someone in any situation. There's a positive in it. You just gotta look for it, right? College is no different. It's not 100% bad. And by the way, if you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, you kind of need to go to college. So it's like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get out of it? And then you could decide whether it's for you or not.
Love it. Love it.
I love that, man. The value proposition has definitely altered quite a bit in recent times. And so I go to the University of Miami. I've been there for a while. And like the biggest thing for sure has been the opportunities that I've gotten just from being there, like as far as like income opportunities here and there, like almost all of them have come from in some way, oh, this kid went to Miami, or, you know, and like
yes,
that network that you have around that is so much more powerful than anything I've learned in a class, for sure.
And people, when they go, like I was this kid, I went to a school where there was a ton of people that went and ended up being successful. It was awesome. Guess how many of those people I used while I was at that school to build a relationship with? Basically zero. I was dumb, right? And so like if I could go back to college, one of the things I would have changed is I'd have spent a lot more time talking to my peers, and then also understanding, okay, people who have been here, that when I email them and I say, hey, I go to the same school you went to, then they're probably more responsive, right? And so it's like I always tell young people, if you're 19, that's the first line of the email. I'm a 19-year-old looking to do whatever, right? I'm going to respond way faster to the 19-year-old than like the guy I think is trying to sell me something. So use what you have to your advantage. And it could be what school you're currently at. And it's the same school as somebody you're trying to reach, your age, whatever, but just like understand how to play the game and use your advantage to your advantage.
Love it. Love it. Fabyan,
so I was going to get to this last question real quick, if you don't mind. So we usually don't talk about this, but we love to know your thoughts.
Oh boy.
Did you want to get into that blockchain?
What is
we already
it?
did that. We already did that.
But a little deeper into
all right, what is it?
So my question was really going to be, what is your idea of actually schools or districts now teaching cryptocurrency? What is your idea on that, and how that's looking up in that?
I don't know how old you guys are, but when I was in high school, they had typing class, which makes me sound old as shit, right? But I'm only in my mid 30s, and literally they would cover up the keyboards and they were trying to teach us how to type. Most of us actually learned on AOL, AIM, right? Like AOL's instant message service. That's where we really learned to type. But we had a typing class at school. It was like, what is the internet, kids? Right? Like it was crazy in hindsight. But at the time, like that was actually groundbreaking, right? I remember they were still teaching us cursive. Like, I don't know if they still teach that in school today, but I ain't seen anyone write cursive in a long time, right?
Barely, yep.
And so if you think of like these really, really innovative technologies, I don't know, in 10 years, they'll be teaching them in the high schools, right? Or 5 years or whatever it is. But we're kind of like just breaching into it. Eventually it'll be pretty pervasive. And then it kind of moves out of the school. And it's like, well, of course they already know about this stuff because they're doing it before they ever got to us. So it's kind of this like weird adoption cycle of technology. But it's no different than past technology cycles. It's just time has to expire in order for it to kind of become pervasive in the schools.
I love it. It's time. It's time. And we're not talking about beta time. Wrap it around. Took you back, Pomp. Took you back.
So Pomp, at the end of these conversations, we like to do a rapid round where we're just going to ask you a few questions. We want to get the first thing that kind of comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Tell me, Pomp, what is money?
Money, it's just the most saleable good. It's the thing that people can exchange for goods or services.
I like it. Tell me, who inspires you the most, either dead or alive?
Myself. That's the only person that you're competing with is just you.
What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, I'm gonna cheat. I got 3 of them. I read them back to back to back when I was 20 years old. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, and Think and Grow Rich. And they completely changed the way that I thought about a lot of things.
Great
I love
lineup
that.
there.
Thank you for adding Think and Grow Rich, because we've already been recommended the first 2, which I've read. I love. Richest Man in Babylon is one of my favorite books of all time, but Think and Grow Rich is also another one. I love that. Thank you for that addition.
Yeah, we hadn't had that yet. You're right, and that one is clave, key. Tell us, do you listen to a podcast? What's your favorite podcast?
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't think I have just one. Some of them are ones that everyone listens to. Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, Tim Ferriss, those types of podcasts. I also like Patrick O'Shaughnessy's Invest Like the Best. I like Sam Parr, Sean Purry's My First Million. I like The Knowledge Project. I like Earn Your Leisure. Those guys do a good job. Anybody I forgot, I apologize, but I like them all. I listen to a lot of podcasts, mainly because I can put it on 2x speed. So I can get a lot of information very quickly. And if I'm working out, I'm walking somewhere or whatever, I enjoy doing that.
I love it. And I understand that you left Cash Rules as last, well, not least favorite. It's
not
okay.
Not only do I listen, I'm on the podcast. That's even better.
Love it.
So yeah, man, we appreciate that. Please tell us a little bit, man, what's coming up that people can be on the lookout for. Obviously, you have your show that we're always tuning into, but what else is going on in your world, man?
My wife wrote a book. Everyone go buy Hidden Genius on Amazon. That'll keep me out of the doghouse for a while. And
I love it.
Good stuff, man. And then lastly, I mean, you're pretty much out there. You're on Twitter. Tell us, where should people reach out to you if they want to get in touch? They're definitely going to have questions.
Yeah, just Twitter's at A Pompliano is fine.
That's that, man.
Perfect. I appreciate you. I mean, honestly, you came on, you did what you usually do. I know the viewers appreciate you. Keith appreciates you. I appreciate you. You've educated all of us so many ways. We're definitely going to be linking back with you regarding our roundtable and just any questions we have around blockchain and anything in terms of financial literacy. Man, you are a wealth of knowledge. You're a walking encyclopedia book. I love it, brother. I appreciate you being on here. You rocked it. I don't know what else to say. Keith, how you feeling?
I'm feeling absolutely incredible. Some people are calling me the Hulk, but I'm just going to calm down right now. I just want to
what they say.
Thank you.
Let that green screen flow.
Thank you to all of our listeners, and we will catch you on the next episode of Cash Rules. Peace.
And if it ain't about the money, don't be calling me up.